I'm Gabby.
And I'm Maddy.
And you're listening to the Jukebox Honeys podcast, where we talk about all things 60s, 70s, and 80s music related.
Follow us at the Jukebox Honeys on all social media platforms and add us on Spotify to hear our weekly episodes. Let's just get started with that. Oh my god.
They did so much drugs.
Yeah.
So many drugs. Queen, iconic band. Rock and roll is definitely the best. The best.
Out of everything, like at least they play instruments. That's what I like.
Friggin' love ABBA!
Yeah.
Mamma Mia!
Here we go again.
Stevie Nicks
is the most iconic queen. And I love her relationship with Harry Styles.
And I love that she's a witch and everyone accepts it and thinks it's cool.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it's just completely different. She's never cared. Landslide will always be my favorite.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Jukebox Honeys podcast. For those of you who are new, I'm Gabby.
And I'm Maddy.
And we are kind of tired today, not gonna lie. We woke up, not on the wrong side of the bed, but definitely on the tired side of the bed.
Yeah, I'm so tired, and I don't even know why I'm tired, because, I didn't get a good night's sleep last night, but
yeah, so if we seem a little lower energy, that's why. But we just wanted to quickly say thank you to everybody who listened to the podcast. It was kind of crazy. Like, we on our host website, we're able to see what country everyone's from, and we had some people from random corners of the world listening. So it was just very cool to see that, and obviously our family and friends, thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, definitely. We had a person from New Zealand, and we had a person from Austria, I think.
Austria.
Yeah.
It was so crazy to see that.
It was crazy to see that. I didn't even know. I expected some people from England because my family is from there, so I wasn't too shocked when I saw United Kingdom in the map, but I was kind of shocked when I saw New Zealand and stuff.
And Austria.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, just a place you wouldn't think of, but it was really cool to see people listening from there. So we just wanted to say thank you to everybody who's listened and supported us so far, and we're really excited to keep putting out content. And that's why we're so excited to keep telling you guys stories from these crazy decades. I think this time was just such a crazy experience to be in the rock and roll industry, or the music industry in general. The 60s, 70s, and 80s was a crazy time to be a musician. Yeah, definitely. And I feel like our Woodstock theme last week kind of is going to play in, especially to this week. Definitely. And so I guess, you guys may know from our Instagram post, which if you're not following us on Instagram, you definitely should, and all our other social medias. It's basically everything is the Jukebox Honeys, except for Twitter, which is Jukebox Honeys, because they were rude and didn't let us put the in.
Yeah. Cut off.
Yeah. So if you followed us there, you would know that this week's topic is going to be drug use in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, which we definitely don't condone.
No.
Don't go and do drugs after this episode. But musicians have used drugs and psychedelics to write their music or to just live their lives, because as Maddy posted on our Instagram, I think it was Mick Jagger.
Yeah, it was Mick Jagger.
You join rock and roll to have sex and drugs, but then you do drugs to have sex and do rock and roll.
Yeah, you have to keep doing drugs to continue that life path.
Because you develop such a dependency that, you just can't function without it, which must be crazy.
And a lot of people feel like they can't write music the way they could without the drugs anymore.
A lot of musicians, even some you wouldn't think, rely on drugs to write their music, and they believe that it puts them in a more creative headspace than being sober would. Which is, I guess it puts you in a different world for sure.
No, it definitely puts you in a whole different world, and we're going to get into that now.
Yeah, so our first topic will be music and songs that were created while high on drugs. So here we go. Alrighty, so our first topic is music that was created under the use of drugs, which there definitely are a lot more that haven't been talked about or probably ever disclosed to the world, but these are some of the more popular ones, and we're just going to talk a little bit about how the influence of drugs influenced the music.
Yeah, definitely. In the 60s, 70s, and 80s, primarily, and even now I feel, but not as so much
Yeah.
of the heavy drugs were influenced with music.
It's more natural.
But weed and stuff like that, but that's condoned in Canada now.
Yeah,
so in
legal.
some American states as well. So it's not like that big of a deal compared to what it was back then. And as well, not a lot of people are using like LSD and those harder kind of drugs and hallucination kind of drugs compared to back then.
Yeah, it's definitely not as common, and it's probably because we learned so many side effects from these people going crazy on them.
Yeah, definitely. There was definitely some bad trips, and we'll get into that later.
Definitely. So the first music that we're going to talk about is from the Beatles, and their album Revolver was created in part due to John Lennon and George Harrison's dabble into the world of LSD. And if you listen to that album, you can definitely see the influence of the drug on their music. Yeah. But more specifically, Gotta Get You Into My Life was written about Paul McCartney's love for marijuana. Just a very interesting... like, people definitely thought it was about a girl that he was, like, trying to get with. And then he's just like, nah, it's about weed. It's about my favorite drug.
Oh, my gosh.
Because, fun fact, Paul McCartney didn't really want to do other drugs. He only ever really did weed.
Whereas, he didn't do the harder drugs compared to the other bandmates.
Yeah, like, Lennon and Harrison definitely did the harder drugs. But Paul was like, no, weed's good for me.
Yeah.
So, he was quoted as saying, Gotta Get You Into My Life was one I wrote when I had first been introduced to pot. I'd been rather straight working class lad, but when we started to get into pot, it seemed to be quite uplifting. I didn't have a hard time with it, and to me it was mind expanding. Literally mind expanding. So Gotta Get You in My Life is really a song about that. It's not to a person, it's actually about pot. It's saying, I'm going to do this. This is not a bad idea. So it's actually an ode to pot. Isn't that kind of funny?
It is kind of funny that it was like that. Even that song, was it Mary Jane's Last Dance by Tom Petty Group? It's the same thing. Everybody thinks Mary Jane is a woman, but it's actually about pot.
Well, that's definitely, like, back then, Mary Jane, I don't think it was known as being, like, code word for marijuana. Because that's how, actually, like, a lot of artists would cover up, like, it actually being about drugs, is they would be like, oh, Mary Jane, like, they would throw in, like, code words, and people would be like, oh, I'm cool, like, I know that's about drugs, where, like, the mainstream people would be like, oh, it's a woman!
Yeah, it's a woman, yeah.
Alright, so the next one Maddie's gonna cover for
So,
us.
this one is about Fleetwood Mac, and it wasn't really confirmed until a 1997 interview with Courtney Love, Kurt Cobain's wife.
It's a messy situation.
It's definitely a messy situation, but you know that they were all into drugs as well. But the song was titled Gold Dust Woman by Fleetwood Mac, and it was in fact about cocaine. So it got confirmed in that interview, and Stevie Nicks actually said, since I haven't done cocaine since 1986, I can talk about it now with you guys. So she could finally, like, talk about the issue, and it was a symbol for cocaine. Like, even in the song, they said, like, take your silver spoon and dig your grave.
Yeah.
So you can kind of clue in the lines there. And she also said, though, it wasn't just about cocaine. It was about a person dealing with their relationship and using drugs as a way to deal with the relationship that was going on, the toxic relationship.
And 100%, it's what she was dealing with when she was working with Fleetwood Mac, because that band had a lot of issues.
A lot of issues, especially working with her ex-husband.
She's a strong woman.
Yeah. So the next one is the Rolling Stones. So the Rolling Stones are very famous for their use of using drugs in their songs and, like, using little hidden things. But songs such as, like, Mother's Little Helper, Brown Sugar, to Sisters Morphine, and Monkey Man. So those ones are very obvious, like, with the lyrics, but one that's not so obvious was actually Sticky Fingers. And this one was about drugs, but a lot of people thought it was just, like, about a woman in a relationship. It's funny how they use that as a way to hide it. I was just
gonna say that. It's always about, like, a woman, like, like, that's, like, the code name or the code word for it. They always kind of hide it as, like, a relationship with a woman, when in actuality it's a relationship with drugs.
Yeah, definitely.
It's pretty interesting.
So one of the lyrics from that kind of sticks out, and it would be, I'll be in my basement room with a needle in a spoon.
Yeah.
So that, you can take that right in there.
Yeah. And next is David Bowie, the iconic David Bowie. And one of his most famous albums, Station to Station, was written entirely while he was high on cocaine and amphetamines. He doesn't even remember writing any of the songs or being in the studio at all. That's how, like, strung out he was.
That's crazy.
It is really crazy. He was quoted as saying, "I don't even remember the studio. I know it was in LA because I read it was." Like, imagine that.
Oh, but you don't even know where you are.
Nope, he's just banging out music, but he just, doesn't matter where he is, doesn't matter who he's with, what he's taking, just he knows that he has to make music.
Oh my gosh.
And kind of like freaky kind of thing is when he began his drug use and obviously mixing it with alcohol, he actually became really obsessed with learning about the occult and fascism.
What?
Yeah.
I, love David Bowie, but I never knew that.
Yeah, he started to look into witchcraft and he learned about Hitler, and he is actually quoted as saying, "I think I might have been a bloody good Hitler. I'd be an excellent dictator."
That's crazy. What was he even thinking? He was probably so stoned and so gone.
He doesn't remember where he was. So.
Let alone saying he could be an excellent dictator.
Yeah, so Bowie later talked about this period in his life, and he explained that the cocaine kept him going and awake so that he could maintain his creativity in the studio. So he just, the cocaine would make him stay awake so that, when he was on a roll, he didn't have to sleep. Because people say that when you go to sleep, after you're on a roll, you kind of lose some of the best music that you make.
That's true. Even people with, doing tests and exams kind of use those drugs to stay awake and keep the body flowing and the mind flowing so they can...
The mind doesn't turn off.
No, definitely not.
He was not sure how he didn't die of an overdose. At his lowest point, he weighed 80 pounds and was riddled with anxiety.
Oh my gosh, yeah, he did get pretty small in the later years.
It's because of the drug use, and, he genuinely is surprised he didn't die of an overdose.
Damn.
Yeah. So, last song or music we're going to talk about is the Beach Boys, and the song California Girls was written by Brian Wilson while he was high on LSD. LSD is a pretty common drug back then.
Yeah, definitely, and not now compared to.
No, definitely not. Wilson first took the drug in 1965, and he felt it expanded his mind. Paul McCartney. I couldn't think of his name. I just said it. Paul McCartney. A lot of these drugs are said to expand your mind and kind of take you to a different world where you learn about yourself and you learn about your ego and you learn about just human composition. So he said that it expanded his mind, and he took the drug while he wrote the Beach Boys' iconic song California Girls, and this led to the band's greatest work, which a lot of people say that the drug use leads to definitely a lot of bands' greatest works.
Yeah, but then it leads to their ultimate demise. Yeah.
Whoa!
Same person. But it does. It leads to the kind of corruption, and that's what we're going to get into now. So, careers and bands ruined due to addictions and etc. So now we're going to get to kind of as I said before, the demise of people and careers and bands completely ruined and obliterated due to addictions and drugs. Mm-hmm. So, as we talked about before, California Girls was written while Brian Wilson was on LSD. However, it was his first time taking it.
Oh.
Yeah. It was his first time taking it, but this led to him experiencing auditory hallucinations and symptoms of schizophrenia, which is very sad. The doctors said that he could hear voices and stuff as well, and he was constantly hearing the voices after this just one-time use of it.
That's insane.
Which is insane. Yeah, it's very crazy that just happened from one-time use. So Wilson later stated that he wished that he never had taken the drug in the first place, because it also ultimately led to his downward spiral, I guess you could say. Yeah. Positive, it gave the band great music and famous, but it ruined his entire life. Yeah. Which is very sad.
Yeah, it's what are you willing to give up? Your health and your well-being for good music? Some people do. Some rock stars definitely do, but I don't know. I definitely wouldn't do it. But it's crazy that his first and only time screwed him up that much for the rest of his life.
His first and only time triggered this big spiral downhill.
That's insane. Mm-hmm. It's really sad.
So the next, Pink Floyd, we all know that they have problems in their band. But Syd Barrett, which he was the guitarist for Pink Floyd from 1965 to 1968, and he continued to use drugs such as LSD, especially while performing. And I couldn't imagine that.
Mm-hmm.
Using LSD while you're performing, having hallucinations while you're performing. We talked about this in Woodstock, the one guy who pictured literally his guitar as a snake.
Santana, yeah.
Yeah, Santana, and continued that performance and freaking killed it.
Yeah.
But there was also speculation as well that he had schizophrenia.
Ooh.
And this kind of triggered it. A lot of people say after they take LSD, it can trigger schizophrenia and make you like hear voices and see things constantly, even when you're not on the drug.
Yeah.
So he would continually see hallucinations and get like extreme mood swings even while on stage.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's not the best situation. But there are records that he would only play one string on his guitar or not play the entire concert. Like, just stand there, just, like, stunned.
Just, like zoned out.
Zoned right out. Like, he's gone. Like, he's just gone. I know. So, one time in San Francisco, he detuned, like, his guitar. Like, he just, like...
He put it out of tune?
Yeah, out of tune the, like, entire time. But people actually liked it. It was a weird warpy kind of sound, but they liked the sound of it, but he just did it because he was just gone. Like, he just did it, like, on purpose.
So, like, he did it on purpose, or he thought it was in tune?
Well, maybe he was just so high that he didn't even know what he was doing.
Maybe.
Yeah. But then he began forgetting his guitar, like, to bring to sessions, and he would, like, hardly be able to hold his actual pick to play the music, which is really, like, sad. He wasn't even remembering who he was or where he was or what he was doing. The band began, like, bringing replacements and stuff to the concerts and, like, sessions and stuff just because he would be completely unable to play. Like, he was just so gone, he was unable to play at all.
Sorry.
There, go ahead.
I wonder how much, like, of the drug that would take to, like, get you that messed up.
Yeah, I don't know.
And because he kept doing it, it must have been, like, he had a high tolerance.
No, definitely. You would definitely build tolerance, but at the same time, I feel like with those hard drugs, it doesn't take much.
That's true.
Look at Wilson, like, he was gone after the one time.
Yeah.
But then in 1968, the band decided to kick Barrett out, but they did not have the heart to tell him.
Aww.
Which was really sad. He started showing up at sessions.
Oh, no.
He would just show up for sessions, sit outside the room, and just wait to be invited in.
That is so sad.
I know. For the longest time, for a couple months there, and they couldn't tell him that, like, he was gone. Like, they couldn't bring them hearts to say it.
Because they probably, like, were friends, and, like, they spent all this time together, and then they have to kick him out. But it's probably for his own good.
No, it was definitely for... But then at the same time, they thought if they did kick him out, that it would lead to his more demise, I guess you could say. Spiral out. I don't have nothing now.
Yeah.
So, eventually, on April 6, 1968, the band announced that Barrett was officially not a member. So they announced it to the public, and I don't know exactly how he found out, but I hope it was okay.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the band just had to cut him, which, sometimes you just have to make that hard decision.
Yeah, for sure. It's show business, and people are paying to see people perform.
Yeah, definitely. So, the Sex Pistols, another famous band, Sid Vicious, had a serious heroin problem, which ultimately led to the destruction of the group due to, like, mean outbreaks. He had, like, mean temper outbreaks at fans and the band members. So actually one time in San Antonio, Sid hit an audience member with his guitar over the head.
Oh my god.
He was so angry, he just freaking wailed the guy with his guitar on the head.
Oh my god.
I know.
That's a lawsuit.
That's a lawsuit, definitely. And then after one time after a really bad high on heroin, he actually carved the words into his bare chest, "Give me a fix," with a knife, like a razor.
Oh.
Yeah, it was just, he was so hyped up on the heroin that he didn't even feel pain at that point.
Yeah, your adrenaline is going so high.
Fast, yeah. So, and after a Winterland show in San Francisco, the band completely fell apart. They couldn't even function together. Everybody had such beef towards each other, I guess you could say. And on October 12th, 1978, Sid killed his girlfriend, Nancy, after a heroin-filled night.
Oh.
Yeah, he stabbed her in the stomach and she bled to death.
Oh, that's a terrible way to go.
Yes.
Oh, and he probably, like, after he was sober, he probably felt so guilty.
Oh, definitely. You'll get into that later, but he actually ended up taking his own life.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about tragic deaths later in the podcast. So the Who main drummist was actually Keith Moon. Mm-hmm. So he had a number of bad drug experiences throughout his entire career. It was ridiculous the amount of stuff he endured with the drugs. So during a 1973 concert, Moon ingested a mixture of tranquilizers and brandy.
Oh!
We love the pair.
Just a casual Tuesday night.
Definitely. But basically, he passed out on his drum set during the song Won't Get Fooled Again.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I wonder how hard he hit his head.
How
loud the drum. That's not funny.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I definitely think that would have been hurt.
Oh, yeah.
So they carried him off stage and they gave him cortisone, so that would like kind of boost him back up again, and they shipped him back on stage within 30 minutes.
That's insane. He could have been having an overdose and they didn't even like care.
Yeah, no. They gave him some drugs to make him kind of okay again, and then sent him back on, but yet a little bit later, during another song, Magic Bus, he passed out on his drums again.
Ooh. He's gonna have a bruise on his head.
Oh, yes, twice in a row.
Ugh.
So the band then asked an audience member asked the audience, I guess, if anyone could play the drums to finish this set.
Oh my god.
So they actually got an audience member named Scott Halpin, who was really good at the drums, and he helped them out for the whole show.
Wow, that's like the guy from Woodstock we talked about last week, John Sebastian, who, like, they're just in the right place at the right time, and then they get the chance of a lifetime to go play on stage with, like, The Who.
The Who, I know. It's insane that he got that opportunity. Well, great for him, honestly, taking a light of a dark situation.
Yeah, for sure.
So, in March of 76, at Boston Garden, Moon passed out on his drums again, yet only after 2 songs.
Oh, so his endurance is getting shorter and shorter.
Mm-hmm. He can't handle it anymore. He's taking or it's either that or he's taking way too much.
Yeah, and his body's not being able to keep up with it like he used to.
Yeah. So, after that happened, Moon proceeded to go to his hotel room and ruined everything, like just smashed everything. And then he cut his arm while smashing the stuff. And he passed out. When his manager later came in, though, Bill found him and took him to the hospital. And he said, quote, "I'm going to get the doctor to get you nice and fit so you're back within 2 days because I want to break your fucking jaw. You have fucked this band so many times and I'm not having it anymore."
Ooh. He's done. He's done with the BS.
He was done with it. He was ruining the Who completely.
Wow. That's really sad.
It's really sad because he had a problem.
Yeah.
He did have a problem, but
no one really cared to help. They just wanted him to get better, to just play music. It's not like they came from like a caring place. Maybe they did and we just don't know, and he was just so angry in that moment.
Yeah.
But sounds like they just needed him to get back on stage.
Yeah, and that's really sad that the music industry exploits people like that.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So then the doctors told Bill that if he did not find him, Moon, laying there, he would have bled to death.
Yeah.
Which is really sad, that he could have literally killed himself. He could have died because of that, but later we'll get in that he actually did pass away.
Oh.
So they began considering firing Moon, but they thought that it would lead to his ultimate demise, that it would just get so bad and the hope would be completely destroyed if they fired him.
Yeah.
He would have nothing more.
It's his whole life. It's everything he's worked for, and it's unfortunately being destroyed by drugs, but they didn't want to make him, like, push him off the edge.
Yeah, definitely. Which, I get them kudos, but at the same time, they could have treated this situation way better. Mm-hmm. So, in 76, Moon was being treated in the hospital for 8 days. The band not knowing if they would even be able to finish their tour, which actually ended at Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto, Ontario. Which
is very close to us. Our school, Ryerson, owns Maple Leaf Gardens now, so it's kind of freaky for us.
It's our sports center now, so that's... And gym, I worked out there a couple times. But, however, he did perform at Maple Leaf Gardens, but it was his last live performance ever. Which is kind of sad. We're going to get into the tragic deaths now, and we're going to start with Keith Moon. Okay, so now we're going to get into the kind of sad part of the drugs. Drugs always, ultimately, not all the time, but majority of the time, leads to people's deaths. and that's why a lot of it's not condoned, is because of that. Weed not so much, and that's why it's being legalized, but harder drugs like this can make you either kill yourself or do, like, terrible things, right?
Or make you overdose. And it's definitely because these musicians, like, overdid them. Because, I guess, a lot of them do it for pain reasons, for creativity reasons, or for just to survive.
Yeah.
Their dependence obviously grows bigger and bigger and bigger, like...
More and more each time.
Yeah.
They become extremely dependent on the drugs, especially, as we said, with Mick Jagger. He quoted that exactly. You can't play rock and roll without them now.
Yeah, it's definitely something to keep you going.
Mm-hmm. So, as we talked about before in the kind of what ruined the band, Keith Moon actually ended up not being able to play the drums at all. He had such difficulty playing the drums anymore because of the drugs. So on September 6, 1978, Moon and Walter Lax went to the McCartney's house to watch a preview of for a film, a Buddy Holly story, and then they went dining with them later that night. So when Walter Lax and Moon returned to their apartment, they started watching a movie, and Moon asked Walter to cook him steak and eggs. She said no to Moon, and Moon replied, "If you don't like it, you can fuck off." Yeah, we love that. So she fucked off, as you guess you could say, and then that was actually Moon's last words.
Oh.
Very morbid, but that was his last words. He then took 32 I want to get this right, clomethazole tablets, and he passed away due to the overdose of the tablets. Walter Lax ended up finding him the next day, dead, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that's
passed
really
away. And it's sad that that's how it happened, and that was his last words to her.
Yeah.
Which is...
Makes you, like, it would probably made her feel really guilty.
Definitely. That he did need extreme help, but I don't think he was the most willing man to get it.
That's the biggest step they say, is, like, you have to be willing to change your life. I can't do it for you. I can't create that will for you. You have to have it yourself.
Yeah, definitely. So, as we talked about before, Sid Vicious, after killing his girlfriend, Sid attempted suicide by cutting his wrist with a broken light bulb.
Oh, no.
No, it was very morbid. He was then hospitalized, and he actually tried then again to commit suicide by jumping out the window and yelling, "I want to be with my Nancy."
So he did love her. It was definitely just like in a fit of rage, and he probably, as we can see, he really regretted it.
Yeah, he was on heroin, and I think it was just the adrenaline of everything was causing him to just freak out, and it made him worse.
Made him angry. It made him vicious. Literally.
Vicious, yeah. So, on February 1st, after getting bail, in 1979, Sid died from an overdose in his apartment, and he was just not doing good at that point. He was with his new girlfriend at the time, and he received bail, but he just overdosed again on the heroin, so...
It's probably just the guilt, like, from killing her, and... Like you said, he wanted to be with his Nancy, so he probably just was done. Which is really sad, but...
He actually received the heroin from one of his friends. I think he was just so done, and I think he was in jail during the time before the bail hearing, so he wasn't able to do any drugs.
So it's probably major withdrawal, and then combined with guilt, and then just wanting it to be over.
Yeah.
So the next tragic death that we're going to talk about is Janis Joplin. In the later months of 1970, Janis was finishing touches on her most successful album, Pearl. During her quick rise to fame, which was actually like crazy quick how fast she got famous, she would develop a major addiction to alcohol and her drug of choice, which was heroin. And she used both of them to deal with her quick rise to fame, because like a lot of musicians say that fame is not what they expected it to be, and it's not as great as they expected it to be. So they kind of use the drugs and the alcohol to cope with that major change in their life. And her manager, I think Bill Graham, was quoted as saying, "She had a tremendous amount of assurance when she got it all together on stage, but off stage privately, she seemed to be very frightened, very timid, and naive about a lot of things," he said. "I don't think she ever knew how to handle success, and I think it created problems for Janis."
That's sad. That's honestly sad. And a lot of celebrities feel that. Even, like, Disney stars, look. Like, a lot of them turn to drugs because at such a young age, to have that much power and that much fame and that much money, it's hard to deal with.
And it's probably, too, like, what doesn't help is, like, people around you begin using you, and you think people are only with you because they like your fame, they like your money. It's definitely a shock to the system, going from 0 to 100 in regards to fame. So on the day of her death, which was October 4th, 1970, she was late for a recording session, and her manager really wanted her to show up because, like I said, they were putting the finishing touches on her album.
Yeah.
So he left the studio and he went to get her, and he went to a hotel, and her car was parked outside, and her car was, like, really famous, apparently. It was, like, this it was this older car, and she had commissioned someone to, like, paint it all rainbow colors, so it was very recognizable. When people saw her driving down the road, they knew it was Janis Joplin. Upon his arrival, he found Janis slumped over on the bed with a cigarette in one hand and some change in the other hand. And she wasn't found with any heroin at the scene of the crime, but later her friends confessed that they removed it from the scene to hide that she had actually overdosed.
Why would they do that?
Because they didn't realize that when she would be looked at by the coroner, an autopsy would prove that she had heroin in her system, so they thought they wouldn't know that she overdosed, and they were trying to protect her reputation, I guess. So they took the drugs, but then when they found out that the coroner could tell that she had drugs in her system, they admitted that, yeah, we took the heroin. We didn't want to ruin her reputation.
Damn.
So the local coroner said she had passed away from a heroin overdose along with mass amounts of alcohol. And it was said that the batch of drugs that she had ingested had been extra potent, and it killed other people who had ingested the batch.
Oh my gosh.
So it was just a crazy, toxic amount of drugs that killed her. But her close friend at the time, Peggy Caserta, believes that her death is a bit suspicious. Saying, "She was lying with cigarettes in one hand and change in the other. For years it bothered me. How could she have overdosed and then walked to the lobby and walked back?" So I guess there's some conspiracy shrouded in her death. Maybe someone did it on purpose or stuff like that. But formally, it's known as a drug overdose.
That's like Kurt Cobain's as well. It's like kind of suspicious that he had that much power. He had that much drugs in him, but then yet he could still shoot himself. Like, you couldn't even think that person could manage a gun or let alone hold
like
one.
Keith Moon, he was passing out on his drum set, so like,
Yeah.
how could you even imagine that? But yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of more conspiracy. Jimi Hendrix's death is kind of clouded with conspiracy. On the night of September 17th, 1970, Hendrix attended a party with his then girlfriend, Monica Daneman, who later picked him up and took him home. When they got home, he enjoyed a mass amount of red wine and later took some of his girlfriend's sleeping pills. And he took, obviously, way more than the prescribed amount.
Yeah.
They weren't even prescribed to him. They were prescribed to his girlfriend. So the next morning, his girlfriend woke up to go buy a pack of cigarettes, and when she returned, she found Hendrix passed out and covered in vomit. Yeah. So it's reported that by the time the ambulance arrived, Hendrix was already dead, and it was said that he didn't die of an overdose. Well, it led to stuff happening, but because he was covered in vomit and because he was so passed out, he actually died of asphyxiation from choking on his own vomit.
From being, like, also probably facing the wrong way, like, facing upward instead of downward.
Yeah, so he choked to death on his own vomit.
That's really sad.
Yeah. There have also, just like Janis and like Kurt, there have been theories surrounding his death, including negligence of the ambulance. So I guess when they got there, people thought he was still alive and that they were taking their sweet time, like not really responding to him as much as they should have. People also believe that he may have been murdered by his girlfriend with a scarf, because at the scene there was a scarf tied tightly around his neck, and they don't know if he did that or if she did that.
Oh my god.
And also, people believe that his manager might have murdered him because Jimmy wanted to terminate his contract with him.
Oh, that's fishy.
Yeah.
But it's crazy though, but they're all part of the 27 Club.
27 Club, which I really want to do an episode about.
Oh, definitely. We could get into that for days, and we'd probably cover some more people like that died later years as well, because like Kurt Cobain's a part of it, and so is Amy Winehouse.
Yeah. So these two, and actually it's kind of freaky. Jimi Hendrix died, I think it was a week before Janis died. They died within, like, the same month.
It's crazy that they're all suspicious as well.
Yeah, there's literally all of them.
Yeah.
Jimmy, Janice, Kurt, Amy, they all have kind of suspicion around them, so you have to wonder if it's the 27 Club or if it's an outside interference or source. Yeah. That's
crazy.
So, like I said, some funny / crazy hallucinogenic stories. We'll start with Sting from the Police. In a recent Netflix documentary titled Have a Good Trip, Adventures in Psychedelics, which I highly recommend.
It was amazing. It was actually really good, and as we talked about the bad trips, they talk about those as well.
They definitely, if you're gonna do it, which, again, we don't recommend, they give you tips on how to do it carefully and how to have a good experience from psychedelics. Like mescal and mushrooms and peyote. Those natural, mushrooms that come out of the earth.
Yeah, there's some really famous people in there. We got Princess Leia in there as well. Yeah. And they talk about all these experiences, especially in this time with everybody experimenting with psychedelics, especially. I think A$AP Rocky was in it too, right?
Yeah, and if you like A$AP Rocky or you just like this category of this topic, A$AP Rocky's story is pretty funny.
It's very funny.
We're not going to tell you what it is because we'll probably get in trouble, but
yeah.
It's pretty funny. But anyways, in the documentary, Sting talks about his funny and bad trips with hallucinogenics. In one of his good trips, Sting talks about taking peyote, like I said, while walking through the countryside. He said that the grass began to talk to him while dancing and were waving at him in a musical manner.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Can you imagine that? Oh, hi, trees, hi, grass. Oh, yeah, you guys are dancing with me.
Let's go, let's dance. A neighbor named John quickly ran out and asked him to help him as one of his cows were giving birth.
Oh my gosh. Going through that experiencing and then having a guy tell you, come help me birth this cow.
It'd be crazy if you were sober, but then to be very high on psychedelics is yeah, it's
a whole different story.
Yeah, so Sting stated, and I quote, "What the experience does is it presents you with the idea of mortality right there. It's your own mortality, the planet. That is the central issue of consciousness when tripping on the psychedelic drug," he said. He and John successfully birthed the cow, and he even became more high throughout the process, stating that the earth cracked open for him. Very interesting. And he actually said that he learned a lot from this experience and that he, in the quote, he stated he learned a lot about consciousness and the human mind and is very...
He felt very connected to the earth.
Yes. Which is what a lot of people report, actually. They feel very connected to the earth and they kind of realize why humans are here. So the next one is John Lennon from the Beatles. Famous drug user. So Lennon was one of the band members who regularly dabbled in many different forms of drugs and psychedelics. And one day in 1968, when he was high on LSD, crazily high, he called up his bandmates and exclaimed that they needed to come right at this instant. There was a crisis. He needed them to come right now, and he had to tell them something very important. So obviously, all the band members rushed over to meet with John, and he sat them down, and very seriously, he told them that he was, in fact, Jesus Christ incarnate, and that he had finally returned to the earth.
Oh my gosh.
I can't even imagine, taking that seriously.
I know.
Or just, not bursting out laughing. But the bandmates were really used to that type of behavior, so they just decided to go out for lunch. It's a normal Tuesday afternoon.
With John.
Yeah. So as they were going out to lunch, a fan stopped Lennon and told him that he loved their last album. And Lennon was quick to tell the fan that he was not John Lennon, but he was Jesus Christ. And the fan was like, okay, yeah, but I still love your album. I don't care if you're Jesus Christ or John Lennon. You're still good. And actually, Maddy told me he did get a lot of trouble for saying that he was Jesus Christ.
Oh, he had a whole realm of trouble. After he said this, a lot of people, a lot of Christians and everything were kind of upset by this. You can't claim that. That's a big claim to make. And a lot of people were upset. You're not John, you're a hippie. Don't even associate. You're a drug hippie, user. So you can't even be as pure as Jesus Christ.
Yeah. It was a little crazy. But even crazier, which hypes it up every single time, is Ozzy Osbourne from Black Sabbath.
Oh my gosh.
He definitely is one of the craziest drug users on this entire list.
There's so many stories you could do one about Ozzy's drug use. This could be a whole freaking segment.
Just about Ozzy. So, Ozzy Osbourne was known in the music industry for a mass amount of drugs he would ingest just for the fun of it. However, one of his more crazy stories happened when he and his bandmate, Nikki Sixx, were hanging out before a show, just, doing a large batch of, I think it was cocaine. And they finished the entire stash, which is reported to have been a lot of drugs. So when Sixx told Osbourne that they were out of drugs, he kind of looked around the room, saw a straw, and went down on the table and snorted a line of fire ants.
Oh, they're fire ants too, not even like the regular ones.
Nah, fire ants.
Oh my god.
And the people literally were like, it's a normal Ozzy Osbourne behavior. But just like,
I couldn't imagine.
Like, it gives me chills. Like, ew.
I feel like they would sting you if they were like alive still.
I think they were alive ants.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Over his lifetime, doctors have taken a look at his genetics and his genes to see if there's something different about them, because no normal person would have been able to ingest the amount of drugs that he had and still be alive.
Yeah, throughout his life he did so much, and also ripping the head off the bat alive.
Oh
my gosh.
And he even admits, like, I don't know how I'm not dead. It's pretty crazy. Lastly, we're going to talk about Jimi Hendrix again, the legend. He was known for his drug use in order to live his daily life. And one night he was roaming around the streets looking for some drugs when he met these group of boys. And they convinced him that they had a huge stash of dope at their house. And he was high out of his mind. So he was like, oh, cool. Like, you guys are just going to share your dope with me. So he followed them to their house, only to be kidnapped and held for ransom.
Oh, we love that.
Yeah, so the boys, I guess they didn't really hurt him, and Jimmy was just high out of his mind, so he just sat in the chair, like, chilling out. They called his manager and was like, if you don't give us this set amount of money, we'll hurt him or whatever.
Yeah.
And his manager was so done with Jimmy's BS. He said, listen, boys, if you don't give me my star back, you're going to get, and I quote, the beating of a lifetime. And it scared them so much that they just returned him to his manager. And it's been reported after that he didn't even know he'd been kidnapped and held for ransom.
He was so gone.
He was so gone that just, he thought he was hanging out with some friends.
That's just so Jimmy.
So Jimmy.
Oh my god.
And that's about it for our second episode, which blows my mind, Maddie. We've done 2 episodes.
I know already. We've done 2 episodes. And this one was just crazy to even endure. Like, even researching this was hilarious and also terrifying.
Yeah, it was a very good mixture of both of those feelings. But I hope this serves as a little bit of a warning not to go crazy on these psychedelic drugs.
Yeah, definitely watch that film if you are thinking about it. I would watch that film and know your safe spots. Know a lot of people say don't look in mirrors.
Oh, that's a big one. That's a big one. Do not look in a mirror.
Yeah, it gets all distorted and your image gets very distorted.
Yeah, and the main thing from that Netflix documentary, which again, we highly recommend you guys watch, is just you have to be in a great mind state, and you have to be in a safe place with people you trust, and that will lead you to have a good trip. Yeah.
So definitely check out that if you want more information on LSD and kind of the effects of it. And
just to kind of laugh your butt off, because some of the stories in there are actually quite hilarious.
They are hilarious.
But we're going to talk about a little bit about next week's topic, which is going to be all about Fleetwood Mac, one of definitely my favorite bands.
Definitely, I'd say probably Beatles for me, and then Fleetwood.
I can't pick, but I know that they're definitely up there. And the reason we're talking about Fleetwood Mac is because next week is Halloween, Maddie.
Yes, and you know what Stevie is?
A witch. A badass witch. So we're going to talk about the band and how they were formed, their kind of life as a band, their life broken up, all the drama within Fleetwood Mac, and the fact that it is widely regarded that Stevie Nicks is in fact a witch.
And her time on American Horror Story as well kind of
solidified it.
Yes.
So, that's next week's topic. We hope you enjoyed this episode all about drugs and hallucinogens. And thank you for listening. Stay rad, stay groovy, stay you. I don't remember what I said last time, but thank you so much for listening. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.